One Year Bible, the Living Bible Paraphrased, April 29th. Judges chapter 9 verse 21 to chapter 10 verse 18. Then Jotham escaped and lived in Beer for fear of his brother Abimelech. 3 years later, God stirred up trouble between King Abimelech and the citizens of Shechem, and they revolted. In the events that followed, both Abimelech and the citizens of Shechem who aided him in butchering Gideon's 70 sons were given their just punishment for these murders. For the men of Shechem set an ambush for Abimelech along the trail at the top of the mountain. While they were waiting for him to come along, they robbed everyone else who passed that way. But someone warned Abimelech about their plot. At that time Gal, the son of Ebed, moved to Shechem with his brothers, and he became one of the leading citizens. During the harvest feast at Shechem that year, held in the temple of the local god, the wine flowed freely, and everyone began cursing Abimelech. "Who is Abimelech?" Gal shouted. "Why should he be our king? Why should we be his servants? He and his friend Zebul should be our servants. Down with Abimelech. Make me your king, and you'll soon see what happens to Abimelech. I'll tell Abimelech, get up an army and come on out in the fight." But when Zebul, the mayor of the city, heard what Gal was saying, he was furious. He sent messengers to Abimelech in Arumah, telling him, "Gal, son of Ebed, and his relatives have come to live in Shechem, and now they are rousing the city to rebellion against you. Come by night with an army and hide out in the fields, and in the morning, as soon as it is daylight, storm the city. When he and those who are with him come out against you, you can do with them as you wish." So Abimelech and his men marched through the night and split into 4 groups, stationing themselves around the city. The next morning, as Gal sat at the city gates, discussing various issues with the local leaders, Abimelech and his men began their march upon the city. When Gal saw them, he exclaimed to Zebul, "Look over that mountain. Doesn't it look like people coming down?" "No," Zebul said, "you're just seeing shadows that look like men." "No, look over there," Gal said. "I'm sure I see people coming toward us. And look, there are others coming along the road past the oak of Me-O-Enim. Then Zebul turned on him triumphantly. "Now where is that big mouth of yours?" he demanded. "Who was it who said, 'Who is Abimelech, and why should he be our king?' The men you taunted and cursed are right outside the city. Go on out and fight." So Gal led the men of Shechem into the battle and fought with Abimelech, but was defeated, and many of the men of Shechem were left wounded all the way to the city gate. Abimelech was living at Arumah at this time, and Zebul drove Gal and his relatives out of Shechem and wouldn't let them live there any longer. The next day the men of Shechem went out to battle again. However, someone had told Abimelech about their plans, so he had divided his men into 3 groups hiding in the fields. When the men of the city went out to attack, he and his men jumped up from their hiding places and began killing them. Abimelech stormed the city gate to keep the men of Shechem from getting back in, while his other 2 groups cut them down in the fields. Battle went on all day before Abimelech finally captured the city, killed its people, and leveled it to the ground. The people at the nearby town of Migdal saw what was happening and took refuge in the fort next to the temple of Baal-berith. When Abimelech learned of this, he led his forces to Mount Zalmon, where he began chopping a bundle of firewood and placed it upon his shoulder. "Do as I have done," he told his men. So each of them quickly cut a bundle and carried it back to the town, where, Following Abimelech's example, the bundles were piled against the walls of the fort and set on fire. So all the people inside died, about 1,000 men and women. Abimelech next attacked the city of Thebes and captured it. However, there was a fort inside the city, and the entire population fled into it, barricaded the gates, and climbed to the top of the roof to watch. But as Abimelech was preparing to burn it, a woman on the roof threw down a millstone. It landed on Abimelech's head, crushing his skull. "Kill me," he groaned to his youthful armor-bearer. "Never let it be said that a woman killed Abimelech." So the young man pierced him with his sword, and he died. When his men saw that he was dead, they disbanded and returned to their homes. Thus God punished both Abimelech and the men of Shechem for their sin of murdering Gideon's 70 sons. So the curse of Jotham, Gideon's son, came true. After Abimelech's death, the next judge of Israel was Tola, son of Puah, a grandson of Dodo. He was from the tribe of Issachar, but lived in the city of Shamir, in the hill country of Ephraim. He was Israel's judge for 23 years. When he died, he was buried in Shamir, and was succeeded by Jair, a man from Gilead, who judged Israel for 22 years. His 30 sons rode around together on 30 donkeys, and they owned 30 cities in the land of Gilead, which are still called the cities of Jair. When Jair died, he was buried in Kaman. Then the people of Israel turned away from the Lord again and worshipped the heathen gods, Baal and Ashtaroth, and the gods of Syria, Sidon, Moab, Ammon, and Philistia. Not only this, but they no longer worshipped Jehovah at all. This made Jehovah very angry with his people, so he immediately permitted the Philistines and the Ammonites to begin tormenting them. These attacks took place east of the Jordan River in the land of the Amorites, that is, in Gilead, and also in Judah, Benjamin, and Ephraim. For the Ammonites crossed the Jordan to attack the Israelis. This went on for 18 years. Finally, the Israelis turned to Jehovah again and begged him to save them. "We have sinned against you and have forsaken you as our God and have worshipped idols," they confessed. But the Lord replied, "Didn't I save you from the Egyptians, the Amorites, the Ammonites, the Philistines, the Sidonians, the Amalekites, and the Maonites? Has there ever been a time when you cried out to me that I haven't rescued you? Yet you continue to abandon me and to worship other gods. So go away, I won't save you anymore. Go and cry to the new gods you have chosen. Let them save you in your hour of distress." But they pleaded with him again and said, "We have sinned. Punish us in any way you think best. Only save us once more from our enemies." Then they destroyed their foreign gods and worshipped only the Lord, and he was grieved by their misery. The armies of Ammon were mobilized in Gilead at that time, preparing to attack Israel's army at Mizpah. "Who will lead our forces against the Ammonites?" the leaders of Gilead asked each other. "Whoever volunteers shall be our king." The Gospel of Luke, chapter 24, verses 13 through 53. That same day, Sunday, 2 of Jesus' followers were walking to the village of Emmaus, 7 miles out of Jerusalem. As they walked along, they were talking of Jesus' death, when suddenly Jesus himself came along and joined them and began walking beside them. But they didn't recognize him, for God kept them from it. You seem to be in a deep discussion about something," he said. "What are you so concerned about?" They stopped short, sadness written across their faces. One of them, Cleophas, replied, "You must be the only person in Jerusalem who hasn't heard about the terrible things that have happened there last week." "What things?" Jesus asked. "The things that happened to Jesus, the man from Nazareth," they said. "He was a prophet who did incredible miracles, and was a mighty teacher, highly regarded by both God and man. But the chief priests and our religious leaders arrested him and handed him over to the Roman government to be condemned to death, and they crucified him. We had thought he was the glorious Messiah and that he had come to rescue Israel. And now, besides all this, what happened 3 days ago? Some women from our group of his followers were at his tomb early this morning and came back with an amazing report that his body was missing and that they had seen some angels there who told them Jesus is alive. Some of our men ran out to see, and sure enough, Jesus' body was gone, just as the woman had said. Then Jesus said to them, "You are such foolish, foolish people. You find it so hard to believe all that the prophets wrote in the scriptures. Wasn't it clearly predicted by the prophets that the Messiah would have to suffer all these things before entering into his time of glory?" Then Jesus quoted them passage after passage from the writings of the prophets, beginning with the book of Genesis and going on right through the scriptures, explaining what the passages meant and what they said about himself. By this time they were nearing Emmaus and the end of their journey. Jesus would have gone on, but they begged him to stay the night with them as it was getting late. So he went home with them. As they sat down to eat, he asked God's blessing on the food, and then took a small loaf of bread and broke it and was passing it over to them, when suddenly it was as though their eyes were opened. They recognized him. At that moment, he disappeared. They began telling each other how their hearts had felt strangely warm as he talked with them and explained the scriptures during the walk down the road. Within the hour they were on their way back to Jerusalem when the 11 disciples and the other followers of Jesus greeted them with these words, "The Lord has really risen. He appeared to Peter." Then the two from Emmaus told their story of how Jesus had appeared to them as they were walking along the road and how they had recognized him as he was breaking the bread. And just as they were telling about it, Jesus himself was suddenly standing there among them and greeted them. But the whole group was terribly frightened, thinking they were seeing a ghost. "Why are you frightened?" he asked. "Why do you doubt that it is really I? Look at my hands, look at my feet. You can see that it is I myself. Touch me and make sure that I am not a ghost. Ghosts don't have bodies as you see that I do." As he spoke, he held out his hands for them to see the marks of the nails, and showed them the wounds in his feet. Still they stood there undecided, filled with joy and doubt. Then he asked them, "Do you have anything here to eat?" They gave him a piece of broiled fish, and he ate it as they watched. Then he said, "When I was with you before, don't you remember my telling you that everything written about me by Moses and the prophets and in the Psalms must all come true?" Then he opened their minds to understand at last these many scriptures. Then he opened their minds to understand at last these many scriptures. And he said, "Yes, it was written long ago that the Messiah must suffer and die, and rise again from the dead on the third day, and that this message of salvation should be taken from Jerusalem to all the nations. There is forgiveness of sins for all who turn to me. You have seen these prophecies come true. And now I will send the Holy Spirit upon you, just as my Father promised. Don't begin telling others yet. Stay here in the city until the Holy Spirit comes and fills you with power from heaven." Then Jesus led them out along the road to Bethany, and lifting his hands to heaven, he blessed them, and then began rising into the sky and went on to heaven. They worshipped him and returned to Jerusalem filled with mighty joy, and were continually in the temple praising God. Psalm 100 verses 1 through 5. Shout with joy before the Lord, O earth. Obey him gladly. Come before him, singing with joy. Try to realize what this means. The Lord is God. He made us. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. Go through his open gates with great thanksgiving. Enter his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and bless his name. For the Lord is always good. He is always loving and kind, and his faithfulness goes on and on to each succeeding generation. Proverbs chapter 14 verses 11 and 12. The work of the wicked will perish. The work of the godly will flourish. Before every man there lies a wide and pleasant road that seems right, but ends in death.